source, the cause of all causes, transcendental to this material manifestation. Text 38. Tvam Adi Deva Purusha Puranas Tvam Asya Vishvasya Param Nidhanam Vedhasi Vedyam Chaparam Chadama Tvaya Tatham Vishwamananta Rupa. You are the original personality, the Godhead. You are the only sanctuary of this manifested cosmic world. You know everything, and you are all that is knowable. You are above the material modes, O limitless form. This whole cosmic manifestation is pervaded by you. 39. Vayoryamogni Varuna Shisanka Prajapatistham Prapatyamascha Namo namaste stutarasra kritva punascha bhuyopi namo namaste. You are air, fire, water, and you are the moon. You are the supreme controller and the grandfather. Thus I offer my respectful obeisances unto you 1,000 times, and again, and yet again. Text 40. Nama purastadata prishtataste namostute sarvata eva sarva. Anantaviryamita vikramastam saram samapnoshi tatosi sarvaha. Obeisances from the front, from behind, and from all sides. Unbounded power. You are the master of limitless might. You are all pervading, and thus you are everything. Text 41 and 42. Saketi matva prasabham yad uktam he Krishna he Yadava he Saketi ajanatama himanam tavedam maya brahmadat pranayena vapi yachchavahasartam asatkritosi vihara shayasana bhojaneshu eko tavapi achutya tatsamaksham aham aprameyam. I have in the past addressed you as, O Krishna, O Yadava, O my friend, without knowing your glories. Please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. I have dishonored you many times while relaxing or while lying on the same bed or eating together, sometimes alone and sometimes in front of many friends. Please excuse me for all my offenses. Text 43. Vitasi lokasya characharasya tamasya pujaschya gurur gariyan natvad samostya api adhika kutonyo loko trayepya aprapatima prabhava. You are the father of this complete cosmic manifestation, the worshipful chief, the spiritual master. No one is equal to you, nor can anyone be one with you. Within the three worlds, you are immeasurable. Text 44. Tasmat pranamya pranidhaya kayam prasadaye tvam aham isham idyam piteva putrasya sakheva sakyo priya priyayarhasi deva sodhum. You are the Supreme Lord to be worshipped by every living being. Thus I fall down to offer you my respect and ask your mercy. Please tolerate the wrongs that I may have done to you and bear with me as a father with his son, or a friend with his friend, or a lover with his beloved. Text 45. Atrishta purvam rishitosmi drishtva payena cha pravyatitam manome tad eva me darshaya deva rupam prasida devesha jagannivasa. After seeing this universal form which I have never seen before, I am gladdened, but at the same time my mind is disturbed with fear. Therefore, please bestow your grace upon me and reveal again your form as the personality of Godhead, O Lord of Lords, O abode of the universe. In text 46. Karitinam garinam chakrahastam ijhami tvam drashtum aham tathaiva. Tenaiva rupena chaturbhujena sahasrapaho bhava vishvamurte. O universal Lord, I wish to see you in your four-armed form, with helmeted head, and with club, wheel, conch, and lotus flower in your hand. I long to see you in that form. So we can go to text 36. Would you like to read the text and purport, Jagannath Prabhu? Text 36. You almost there? Oh, Rishikesh. Oh, Rishikesh, the world becomes joyful upon hearing your name, and thus everyone becomes attached to you. Although the perfected beings offer you their respectful homage, the demons are afraid, and they flee here and there. All this is rightly done.
Purport. Arjuna, after hearing from Krishna about the outcome of the battle of Kurukshetra, became an enlightened devotee of the Supreme Lord. He admitted that everything done by Krishna is quite fit. Arjuna confirmed that Krishna is the maintainer and the object of worship for the devotees and the destroyer of the undesirables. His actions are equally good for all. Arjuna understood herein that when the battle of Kurukshetra was being concluded, in outer space there were present many demigods, siddhas, and the intelligentsia of the higher planets, and they were observing the fight between because Krishna was present there. When Arjuna saw the universal form of the Lord, the demigods took pleasure in it, but others, who were demons and atheists, could not stand it when the Lord was praised. Out of their natural fear of the devastating form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they fled. Krishna's treatment of the devotees and the atheists is praised by Arjuna. In all cases, the devotee glorifies the Lord because he knows that whatever he does is good for all.
So this is nice. All the verses that we read were all recited by Arjuna. Usually we're hearing this mostly from Krishna. And Arjuna is offering really amazing prayers to Krishna. Prabhupada, he makes a couple good points that stood out to me in this purport. He's talking about the nature of atheists, that they get angry when they hear the Lord praised. And I'm just thinking from my own degraded past, I used to think the same way at one point. It's completely atheistic, and family or friends, they glorify God and say, everything's done by God. It says, what does God do for me? I do everything for myself. I am doing all this hard work. I'm doing everything. So as we take up devotional service and transcendental realization is blessed upon us, it can become hard to see that people actually see that way, that they think that they're the doer, that they're the controller, that there's nothing, no person overseeing everything and in control. And why does this atheistic view come where somebody's actually inimical to God? As Prabhupada says here in this last sentence, in all cases, a devotee glorifies the Lord because he knows that whatever he does is good for all. So, if somebody's in a self-centered conception of life, it's very easy to hold a grudge amongst others. Somebody mistreats us in a certain way, somebody behaves with us, somebody does something we don't like. It's easy to hold a grudge to that person. And this is what we've all been doing against Krishna, holding a grudge against Krishna. I don't deserve this position of life I'm in. I'm suffering. I have cancer. I don't have so much beauty. Everything's difficult for me. I'm in anxiety. I deserve better. Or even if we have $1 billion, we're still thinking, I deserve better. I need more. This is not suitable for me. But the devotee knows that whatever Krishna does is good for all. So by taking up devotional service, Krishna can beautifully arrange to put us in so many different situations to free us from our false ego. This is the purification that we so often speak of, because we have accepted a false identity in this material world, thinking I am so and so, I act like this, I behave like this, I'm this great, people need to worship me in this way, I deserve this respect. All these things are born from the false ego. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he describes how just as the wind is carrying the aroma from flowers through the air, just like that, our subtle body is carrying us from one body to the next body. So we so often say, I'm not my body, you're not your body. Boo, get out of Maya, you're not your body. We're also not our subtle body, our mind, our intelligence. So it's very important to make the distinction of what is my mind, what is my intelligence, what is actually me. I was hearing earlier today, I was reading about it a little yesterday and it inspired me and something I'd like to look more into. But in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna, he's describing to Uddhava the pastime of the Avanti Brahmana. Everybody familiar with this? The Avanti Brahmana, he was a very pious, rich man, rich, wealthy Brahmana, higher class of people. And he wouldn't spend any money. He wouldn't spend any money for worship for God, worship for the demigods. He wouldn't spend any money on his family. He wouldn't spend money on himself even. He would just hoard it. This is called being a miser. In present times, there's famous by this, what is it? Scrooge, this, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. The duck. Anyways, miser, being miserly, just hoarding things for the sake of hoarding things, but not actually knowing the proper utilization, the proper function, how to use things. So the devotees, we learn from our acharyas the principle of yukta vairagya, taking whatever we receive, and if it can be used in service, great. Then we'll use it until we can't use it anymore, and we'll use it some more. If it's able to be engaged in Krishna service. If it's not favorable for Krishna service, then a devotee has nothing to do with it because it's not conducive to bringing pleasure to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this Avanti Brahmana, it was a miserly person, and eventually he lost all of his riches and he was living poor on the streets, traveling, and he questioned the nature of happiness. This is the major thing that he is teaching. And he took up the renounced order. He was traveling. He was being kicked on and spit on. He would be like sitting down to take prasadam, and people would come up and pass urine on his prasadam, or they'd walk by him and pass foul air at him. He took a vow of silence. So it said the kids would come and hit him with sticks to make him speak or make him say something. So he was rich, he was wealthy, he had everything, and then it all got taken away. So this brought some really deep realizations. And what he was questioning the most is, where does happiness come from? Where does distress come from? And he goes through a long sequence where he's questioning, where is happiness and distress coming from? And he's saying, it doesn't come from the demigods. It doesn't come from the arrangement of planets. It doesn't come from this. It doesn't come from that. It simply comes from our mind. Our mind is thinking, this is good, this is bad. I like this, I don't like that. And Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, he describes the mind as chanchalam, flickering. I was reading this book by Borijan Prabhu about japa, and he so nicely captures the movements of the mind, which can be hard to capture, and like we're all thinking all the time, but it can be hard to take all those little subtle thoughts and put it on a piece of paper or make it in a tangible way so you could see it and see how ridiculous it is. But he did this nicely, and he gave the example, we're chanting japa and we're thinking, one thing, and it's like a favorable thing. And then 5 minutes later, you could be thinking the same thing and it's an unfavorable thing. And I'm chanting. So, this Prabhu's walking back and forth. It's disturbing me. So let me close my eyes. That will solve my problem. Now I'm chanting. And then I have a problem with my eyes being closed. So then I'm trying to chant more. Then I open my eyes again. Then I'm disturbed by something else. They're always disturbed. So this the nature of the mind is chanchalam, to be flickering on this, flickering on that, flickering on this. So this Avanti Brahmana thoroughly questioned this and analyzed it and saw that this is just the nature of the mind, and real happiness alone comes from rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what brings happiness. This goes beyond the dualities of the world. And this is what Krishna is teaching in the Bhagavad Gita through and throughout. He's giving all these philosophical presentations, and he talks about the nature of the mind, how to control the mind, his greatness, his opulence, the different factors of action, the modes of material nature, this banyan tree that's mirror reflection, all leading up to the 18th chapter where he's saying, just surrender unto me, just work for me, I'll protect you, have no fear. So I was thinking about that, having no fear. This point is very nice, where Prabhupada is saying that in all cases, a devotee glorifies the Lord because he knows whatever he does is all good. And we could look at this and question, are we really a devotee? Sometimes a reverse happens and we're thinking, why did this happen to me? Why did it go like this? I thought it was going to go like this. I wanted it to happen like this. I'm in this situation. I'm in this place. I don't know if this is the best for me. I think, I should be there. I think the situation should have turned out like this. But Prabhupada's saying in all cases, a devotee glorifies the Lord because he knows that whatever he does is all good, good for all. So you could think about this nature of being anxiety and disturbed and glorifying the Lord. I was reading a book by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, something he wrote, and he was just a compilation of shlokas. So I don't know where he got the shloka from. Might have been Rupa Goswami or something. I don't know. But anyways, the point was being made that we should give up our mind being disturbed. Like when our mind is disturbed, there's no capacity to glorify the Lord. And we can observe this. You might be in kirtan, and the kirtan, you look to your left and devotees are like dancing, like anything, they're fired up. And then you're sitting there like, oh. You're thinking about, I ate too much earlier, or, I should have ate more, or all these different things come to our mind of why we're not happy now, why we're not okay now. But these two thoughts and feelings, they don't mix together. It's like oil and water. If we're fully absorbed in glorifying the Lord and in that rasa and like really absorbed, then anxieties and worries just can't stand there, because wherever Krishna is, it's light, and Maya is like darkness. But we could be standing in the temple, standing in front of the deities, and totally thinking we're Maya. I was hearing a lecture this morning by Srila Prabhupada, and somebody was asking, I think it was Hridayananda Maharaj, he was asking Prabhupada about if there's Maya in the temple. So there's Maya in the temple too. And Prabhupada said, no, there's no Maya in the temple. But you're just in Maya, so you're thinking that there's Maya in the temple. So because we're in ignorance, we're portraying our ignorance on what we see and experience, when in actuality, if we're just absorbed in devotional service, then all this ignorance will dissipate. And one other point I wanted to make on this before we keep reading some more is that, one could be a pujari doing seva for the deities, intimate seva of bathing and dressing and arti, but somebody could be in the arti standing in the back, and they might not even be dancing or anything, but they could be more absorbed, more closer to the Lord, being this far back here rather than the person who's up close touching the Lord. It's all about our consciousness. So what we're doing physically, devotional service, the externals are to cultivate the internal mood of loving Krishna, of turning towards Krishna and depending on Krishna in all circumstances. And this is kind of the point that Prabhupada was making, that the devotee glorifies the Lord in all cases. So we should strive to follow that. These prayers by Arjuna are very nice, which, we know leads up to him asking to see Krishna in his four-armed form and then his two-armed form. But yeah, this is a real testament of how when Krishna reveals his infinite opulences to his devotee, that the devotee is awestruck by his greatness. And then naturally there's a mood of awe and reverence. So Arjuna, 10 shlokas straight, he's just completely praising him of, I used to call you Yadava, oh Krishna, and joking with him like a friend sitting on the same bed. Now he's realizing this is the supreme Lord. This is God of all that be. He's totally amazed and bewildered at the same time. I really like the shloka that we read where he said that I am gladdened, but at the same time, my mind is disturbed with fear. Can you imagine seeing this? You're seeing something that's so mesmerizing, so captivating that you're completely filled with like joy and ecstasy and intrigue, but at the same time, you're so disturbed because you're just like, is this? Who is this? What am I dealing with? Can we just see Krishna again? So it's very nice, this chapter 11, to meditate on deeply. You know, obviously we know the conclusion that Arjuna wants to see Krishna in his natural form, and Prabhupada in that purport, we we should read it because it's a good purport. We'll get to it. But he talks about how the devotee just wants to see Lord in the form of Shama Sundar, two-armed form of Krishna, playing the flute. But my point is that a lot of the other chapters of the Bhagavad Gita are so much drenched in philosophy, where this universal form is more just like a big, like, whoosh, like a movie scene to captivate you and blow you away. And this is why new devotees and other people we meet on the street, so many times I meet people, they've never read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, but they've read other Bhagavad Gitas, and they're like, yeah, the universal form, like, that's amazing. It's because they know nothing about Krishna. They know God about just awe and reverential mood of fear and mysticism. So then they hear this and it corroborates their idea of God. So then naturally there's a connection. So as we hear about God, we're intrigued in the same way. But then as we learn more about Krishna, who he is, what pleases him, what displeases him, how to act, how his devotees act with him, then naturally we gain more affection and attraction for Krishna as he is. And that's the downside to this of Arjuna offering these prayers and seeing Krishna in this form. It retracts further rasas that can develop, because we hear these residents of Vrindavan, they know Krishna's God, but they don't care. It's just my friend. I wake up in the morning, I go run to see Krishna. Oh, it's time to go run out to herd the cows. We're playing, we're wrestling. There's no consideration of, oh, this is God. I have to worship his lotus feet. And this pleases Krishna much, much more. But like I said, the external activities we're doing is to help us develop the internal mood of loving Krishna, this purification. So we practice the prescription of Vaidhi Bhakti very vehemently, these rules and regulations and Vaishnava etiquette to help us develop the proper consciousness so we can eventually enter into these higher states of bhakti, which is Raganuga Bhakti, spontaneous loving devotion for Krishna. But we may not have that. That's for us to prod through our hearts, to be honest in this purification process, seeing that we're attached to name and fame, lust, for sense gratification, for sex, for overeating. These things are there, but this desire for name and fame is a very, very, very subtle thing. I was reading something recently, and this point was being made. Very easily, I can see if I overeat, okay, that's bad. If I oversleep, that's bad. But the desire for name and fame and some kind of respect, some credo, it's very, very subtle. Where I want to distribute books, but when I distribute tons of books and people see, then I get encouraged and I want to distribute more. Or I dress the deities, and I expect everybody to be there for darshanarti because I dress the deities. But then do I act the same way when somebody else dresses the deities? So we can be more increasingly aware of how this subtle desire for some kind of recognition for our service is there. But if the devotee knows Krishna's there and Krishna sees all, knows all, Krishna knows our heart. One devotee can do all the service in the world. He can carry the temple on his back, but he could be doing it out of a sense of ego in some kind of desire for this name and fame or whatever it may be. And another devotee who's not so physically able can do to the best of their ability, but they're doing it very sincerely. This is this is very pleasing to Krishna. So we can't always judge things by the externals. Prabhupada, he always encouraged his disciples in this way. Just because somebody was a Mataji or from some other place, he never discouraged them. He always pushed them to the limit of their capability. And we could see with some disciples, he was very heavy and he gave strong orders and sent them to like China to start a temple, to start a whole preaching movement in a whole foreign country. And some disciples he was a lot more, could say, gingerly, like more fatherly, more nice too, but still the same instructive and encouraging. So everybody has our different nature and our different propensity, and we should work together in a spirit of putting service to Guru and service to Krishna in the center. And the Kanishta Adhikari, he comes to the temple, he sees that here's the deities. Let's put all of our attention on the deities. I give a donation and I take prasadam and I leave. And then the Madhyama Adhikari, we read, can see, okay, here's devotees, here's the innocent, here's the atheist, here's God. So this is nice, but also at the same point, it's that if I'm putting all my effort and energy, like this is my service, I have to do this service, and we're not treating the devotees right along the way, or encouraging one another, or better yet, creating an atmosphere that's more conducive for others to do service. Meaning sometimes my service, I have to take a step down from my standard so I can help others come up to a higher standard. This is more of a higher platform because we're actually seeing that, oh, here's other souls trying to surrender to Krishna, and we should work together in a favorable mood so that everybody is enthusiastic and encouraged to serve Krishna, not just me and my service and my guru. Because this is still coming from this Kanishta Adhikari platform of just me and God, me and God. But the Madhyama, he's making the distinction. He could see the differences. So we should work in this spirit of encouraging one another. So kind of rambling and talking about different points, but I'd like to read this purport. Oh, I don't even know if we read that text where that purport was I was talking about. Well, does anybody have any comments or questions or thoughts? Jagannath Prabhu. Yeah, I think the purport I was talking about we'll read tomorrow. So
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So this is about that point that you made about the mind. I was wondering, why does the mind give us happiness and or distress?
The mind does not give us happiness and distress. It gives us an illusion of happiness and distress. The mind gives you a perspective, and everybody has their own individual perspective because this is the mental platform. It's not absolute. So when we take the devotional service, we hear it's absolute. So what does this mean? Yeah, you could say that, true in all circumstances. So when we render service to Krishna, it's absolute, meaning it's true in all circumstances. It's for the best for everybody. It actually brings pleasure to oneself. It's in everybody's best interest. But when we're not serving Krishna, naturally we'll be hovering on a lesser platform, namely the intellectual platform, the mental platform, or even a lower platform of just thinking about life, like your energy, your food. There's Anamaya, Kalesha, Pranamaya, Manamaya, Buddhimaya, Anandamaya. These are different levels of consciousness, you could say it. So on the mental platform, one is going through being dictated by the mind, and the mind is dictating that this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. And I always give the example that, a sane person, if I take out a knife and I start cutting my wrist, I'm going to say that's bad, that's no good. But some people who are engrossed in tamagun, they do the same thing and they think this is pleasurable. So my point is that the mind is telling one person that this thing is good, and it's telling the other, this other person is bad. But then also you'll accept something as good, and then 5 minutes later you'll accept it as bad. This is the mind. So we have to learn to distinguish what is the mind. So we don't have to listen to the mind. The mind is a rascal. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the untrained mind is the worst of enemies. But the mind brought under control is the best of friends. What is the mind brought under control? The mind that is trained to be utilized in Krishna's service. You see, the jiva will see Krishna as the master and not the mind as master, because the mind is there, processing everything. And between your mind and your false ego, it's telling you that you're the master, you're in control, that you deserve to be, you're special. Prabhu, you are special. You deserve praise. It's funny because our society, kind of propagates this message in a way. Everybody's special in their own way. Don't judge anybody. And especially now with, the whole, I don't know what you call it, but like gender wave. You know what I mean? Yeah, people are taught in school, don't judge anybody. Everybody, is perfect the way they are. Let them be, and it's all coming from the mind, because somebody's saying, oh, I don't identify with this body, so I'm going to switch my body to be like this. And then they grow up 10 years later and they're like, oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. But, I kind of already went down that road. I was in Borijan Prabhu's book. He mentioned he took a part of Prabhupada's purport. I don't know where it was, but Prabhupada made a comment saying that, that the mind is the source of us being in the material world since time immemorial. Because we're thinking that we're the mind, and the mind is just gravitating towards this, gravitating towards that. I mean, if you think about when you're chanting japa, this happens all the time, but japa, it's highlighted. You have a certain thought and you're like, you can't let it go. It's so strong, you don't want to let it go and move on to the next thing. And it's a struggle to focus on the holy name. But then if you think about, like, an hour later, that same thought, you don't even remember what the thought was. But you're having that thought and it goes to another thought that's so strong and so disturbing that you can't let go. And then another thought that's so disturbing and you can't let go. So then Borijan Prabhu, he was talking about how in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, Maitreya Muni is instructing Vidura, and he's telling him about the process, the understanding of time in the material world, starting from the movement of, the atom and the molecule all the way up to a lifetime of Brahma. So he was making the point that when you view things in this scale of time, it's like we might have been in 5th grade and I did some disastrous thing and it left like a scar in my life. Or I was in 6th grade and I got that certificate, and it was such a good time. But it's like if you made your life into a movie, if you're 25 years old, and then there's that one moment that happened to you when you were in 6th grade or 7th grade or whenever it happened, the time you won that big football game. If you made a whole movie of your life, would that even make like a minute in the movie, a second in the movie? It's often nothing. So we're going through life on a small scale. Japa is the example. Our mind is thinking about this, thinking about this, thinking about this. On a bigger scale, we have different samskaras and different things that affect us, and we're making them such a big deal. And it's just our mind associating with different things. Our mind is accustomed to associating with anxiety, with depression, with all sorts of crazy thoughts. And because that's its habit, that's what it likes to do. So it's just your mind grasping for something. But really, what we're looking for is shelter of Krishna, and this is the only shelter. Taking shelter of Guru, taking shelter of Krishna. This means taking shelter of the instructions of the Guru and applying these instructions to our life. And this way we can very easily overcome the mind. I say that you know, it is very easy, but it may be a struggle, but it is easy. You chant Hare Krishna, you follow this process, you read, you do devotional service, and naturally it will happen. What's the saying that it's simple but not easy? That's what I mean to say. Yeah, something else?
Um, you were you were just talking about following the spiritual master's instructions. And I'm wondering like if when the spiritual master passes away from this world, like does he empower somebody for a certain disciple like to be his shiksha guru, and then in that way or does he do you just follow his instruction when he was alive, and then that's you honoring his vani, like I don't know.
There's different ways to go about it, you know. There may be a prominent disciple who's leading the charge that can provide shelter for other devotees, especially if they have close relationships. The guru, you know, you can have many shiksha gurus. So you only have one diksha guru. Your diksha guru can leave this world, but you can still take shelter of a shiksha guru, a more senior devotee who's fixed up the new, who is, you know, very senior and in good standing. Can just take shelter of our god brothers, other Vaishnavas. But ultimately, there's Vapu and there's Vani. Vapu means direct association. Vani means instruction. So it's said that following the Vani, you can actually become more closer with the Guru than the Vapu. Because you could be in your physical presence of your Guru, totally spaced out and totally just, you know, ignorant. But following the Vani, this is what's important. You know, I had a realization of this myself where, you know, here it's very important, especially for everybody who's, you know, disciple of their guru who's living here, that you don't become overly familiar with the close proximity and association of said guru. You know, like Srila Prabhupada, he had so many disciples and he's traveling all over the world. Like we have more access now to Srila Prabhupada than his disciples did back in the day. Because we go on YouTube and we hear this lecture, you know, you watch Following Prabhupada, all the books are there, everything is already there. This is why traditionally when we celebrate, you know, Acharya's appearance day and disappearance day, the disappearance day is more significant because their Leela has already been manifested. So the point I'm trying to get to is that very carefully, diligently, we should guard against being over familiar with the close association. But the Vapu and Vani, so we can be in our physical presence of our guru and we're totally like mystified, like, oh, this person's so transcendental. Look at the way he does this. He walks like, you know, he's from the spiritual world. You know, he's like, he floats. It's like he's not touching the ground. You know, we come up with all these things of like, oh, this person's so mystical, which is good. We shouldn't view the spiritual master like a normal person. But then we walk out the door, and what happens? Do we remember everything he said, or does that feeling just slowly fade away, and then we fade back into our mind? So the point is, we're in the physical presence, and it's so nice, it's enlivening, but eventually we have to walk out the door. And when we walk out the door, what's going to carry us? We have to follow the instructions. But we should get as much vapu as we possibly can. We should render as much personal service as we can because these will create favorable samskaras for when he's not here. So, in short, there's many different options. One could find another Shiksha Guru, take shelter of them. One could take shelter of senior god brothers, especially who our Guru has empowered to help instruct you and teach you. Take shelter of other Vaishnavas. But we have to. We have to take shelter of the Vani. That is most important. So is there any other thoughts or comments or questions or chastisements? You have something? You? Yeah. Okay, well, there's 2 minutes. I'll just I'll just read this next shloka and purport real quick. O great one who stands above even Brahma, you are the original master. Why should they not offer their homage up to you? O limitless one, O refuge of the universe, you are the invincible source, the cause of all causes, transcendental to this material manifestation. Report. By this offering of obeisances, Arjuna indicates that Krishna is worshipable by everyone. He is all pervading and he is the soul of every soul. Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Mahatma, which means that he is most magnanimous and unlimited. Ananta indicates that there is nothing which is not covered by the influence and energy of the Supreme Lord. And Devesha means that he is the controller of all the demigods and is above them all. He is the center of the whole universe. Arjuna also taught that it was fitting that all perfect living entities and all powerful demigods offer their respectful obeisances unto him, because no one is greater than him. He especially mentions that Krishna is greater than Brahma, because Brahma is created by him. Brahma is born out of the lotus stem grown from the navel abdomen of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, who is Krishna's plenary expansion. Therefore, Brahma and Lord Shiva, who is born of Brahma, and all other demigods must offer their respectful obeisances. Thus, the Lord is respected by Lord Shiva and Brahma and similar other demigods. The word Aksharam is very significant because this material creation is subject to destruction. But the Lord is above this material creation. He is the cause of all causes. Sarvakarna Karna. In being so, he is superior to all the conditioned souls within this material nature, as well as the material cosmic manifestation itself. He is therefore the all great supreme. Prabhupada made this one sentence here where he says he is the center of the whole universe. Does this remind anybody of any shlokas or anything? I was thinking of how Krishna says he's like everything's strung on him like the pearls strung on the thread. So, the pearls are there. You could see the pearls, but you can't see the thread, which is in the center that's holding it all together. That's Krishna. Krishna is the center of everything. He's holding it all together. He's the support of everything. He's the Sarvakarna Karanam, the cause of all causes. Very fortunate we are to have the ability, the chance to worship Lord Sri Krishna by Prabhupada's mercy and the mercy of our Acharyas. So, Srimad Bhagavad Gita as a kiz ki jai.